What if I told you that when you graduated college, you had to give up your cell phone, couldn't use the internet, and had to move to a foreign country where you had no family or friends and didn't speak the language? And on top of it, you had to live like this for the next 20 to 30 years of your life. That means no Facebook, no Instagram, no Snapchat, and like a lot of us have been doing in this audience, no texting. Is there anything you've done in your life to date or could ever imagine doing that would be as scary as this? I'll bet for most of us, including me, it pretty much sounds like the most terrifying thing I could ever imagine. It's something that I can't even start to begin to think about what it would take to go on an adventure like that. And what's interesting about this, it's not an imaginary world. It's real. It's what anyone that immigrated to this country in the 1970s or before actually went through. And the funniest part of all that is that those same people probably couldn't imagine doing that today. They probably feel like that life that they lived at that time was a dream life. And if their kids, 18 or 22 or older, told them, hey mom, hey dad, I'm gonna go get rid of my phone, I'm gonna throw it in the trash, I'm not gonna use the internet, you have no way of contacting me, and I'm gonna move to XYZ place. If they told their parents that, which their parents did, I think their parents would lock them in their room. You know, they'd say, no way, there's no chance, it's too risky. So what I want to contend today is that there's no such thing as risk-taking for the majority of people who will ever hear this talk. The idea of something feeling risky is really just based on two variables. One, simply perception. The second is the feeling of having something to lose. I'm here to tell you that your perception doesn't always paint the whole picture. Almost everyone in this room is lucky. Like, you went to the gas station, bought a lottery ticket, and won the Powerball lucky. And when you realize this, your whole world will open up and possibilities that you could never imagine. Nothing is risky. Nothing is not risky. Everything just is. And it's our perception of a particular circumstance that makes us believe whether something is risky or not. And for those of us in this world that have an opportunity to do something that we are truly passionate about, that we owe it to ourselves to take action, because we rarely realize how lucky that it is we are to even have the opportunity in our lives to take something that is perceived as a risk. Think about it. And this is sort of weird, so I'm going to warn you guys. For most of us, cutting somebody open would be risky. It'd be scary. It's super weird that I even brought that up, right? But there's probably doctors in this room. My brother's a surgeon. Literally, his favorite thing in the world to do is to cut people open and fix them. And to me, like, that sounds insane. I can't even think about it. What about something else? Buying a plane ticket to London. Many of you in this room have probably traveled to another country. Some maybe haven't. That doesn't seem too risky to most people. But what if you've never traveled? What if you have a fear of flying or a fear of heights? What if you don't speak English? Something as simple as buying a plane ticket to fly to London could seem like the riskiest thing in the world to you at that moment. There are endless examples like this. Skydiving, skateboarding, quitting a job, asking somebody out on a date, starting an academy for people to code, like we just heard. The takeaway that it isn't the event or action or circumstance that's inherently risky. It's a particular person's interpretation of event, action, or circumstance due to their unique life experience up until that moment in time that makes them perceive something as risky, even when literally the person next to you might have a completely different perception. Just think about that for one moment. Your risk is maybe your neighbor's norm, and vice versa. Understanding this, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. Most people usually think that the things that they've never tried before are risky. And with every year, the older we get, the more risky we believe the things are that we've never tried. But the only thing that's changing is your perception of that particular event. The actual risk in question doesn't change. It's a distinct action that just is. And the worst part is, because of this illogical perspective, very few of us ever try something new at all, ever take a risk at all. So for those of you that actually chooses to take a risk in your life, your probability of success in that action relative to everyone else in the world actually goes up as the demand for that particular action or taking that risk goes down. Simply put, even if you think something is really risky, it's always less risky than you think. Picture this. So there's three options. If you do something, there's three options of that could happen. 1, life gets better. 2, life stays the same. And 3, it gets worse. So literally, you have a 66% chance of either being the same or getting better. The problem is that everyone imagines that there's a 100% chance it's going to get worse. And that's not the case. So how you internalize this fact can dictate the entire arc of your life. It can trap you or it can free you. But it's not just our misguided perception that leads us to believe certain things are riskier than others. The feeling of risk also comes from the feeling of having something to lose, the opportunity cost of life. I was trapped until 2008, a very important year in my life. Not trapped in the sense that something went wrong with my life. I actually had a really nice life. I had great friends, I had family, I had done some things, but trapped because I had pretty much chosen to live my entire life up until that moment to avoid perceived risks. And because of this, I'd never made a decision for myself, independent of what I thought others wanted me to do or what I thought would make me seem successful in other people's eyes. I thought I had something to lose, always, when in reality, I only had everything to gain. I just didn't realize it yet. By 2008, I had attended a great university, not Purdue, unfortunately, but I'm from here. Majored in economics, worked in investment banking and private equity, like you heard. I was financially independent for the first time in my life and living in a city I loved and traveling and doing all these great things. But every decision I had made to get to that point was because I thought it was what I was supposed to do. Literally in college, I didn't even know what investment banking was. But I wasn't pre-med, and I wasn't going to be a lawyer. I wasn't an engineer. Had a liberal arts degree. And that's literally what I thought I could do. I didn't even know what it was. Other friends were interviewing, and so I went after it. So at this point in my life, 2008, it's July, August, I had a very important decision to make. I had a promotion offer. I don't know why, but they gave me one. I could go to business school, and I had, studied and taken the test and all of this stuff. And it's what my friends were doing. It's what my peer group in the finance and the consulting and the business world were doing. It would help cement my career and future. It was well respected, and it would make my mom really happy, I'm sure. And she's in the audience up there somewhere, so I hope that puts a smile on her face. The risky choice was to do something different. I wasn't passionate about finance, and I'd always imagined starting something on my own, even though I literally had no idea what that was. And just as an aside, that's okay. So I ended up doing what anyone in that situation would do. I quit my job, and I bought a one-way plane ticket to Argentina. For the next 2 years, I traveled. I ended up going to every continent in the world and over 30 countries. I spent most of my savings, or for purposes this, my wrist shield, but I don't think that could ever compare to the experiences that I had. I went to some of the most amazing, beautiful, scary, and everything in between places on planet Earth. I met some of the most incredible people that I've ever met in my life, and those were people from all walks of life, whether that's sub-Saharan Africa or Nepal or Southeast Asia or somewhere in Europe and everywhere in between. And these are people that I'm still close to today and experiences and relationships that I treasure. And guess what? I'm alive. I'm still here. The world didn't end. I was still standing. My life didn't crumble out all from under me. My friends didn't ditch me. Nobody said that, oh, I'm never going to hire you for a job ever again. I was fine. It was the first time that I'd taken time to catch my breath and not jump immediately from one thing to the next. And I really thought about what I wanted in life. I went from being trapped to being free. There's one specific moment in my travels where I really gained clarity on this. It's one of the most important experiences that has happened in my life. It was April or May of 2009, and I had the opportunity to go to the Himalayas, where I trekked for 2 or 3 weeks. Normally, people go in big groups. I went by myself. and I hired this random guy that I found through someone in Kathmandu to take me in the mountains, which is probably a weird and stupid decision. But he was good. His name was Prakash. We sort of looked alike. He was a really nice guy, and because I wasn't in a group and hanging out with the people in that group, I hung out with him. So instead of going to bed at night or hanging out with the other Westerners, Prakash would take me to local Tibetan and Nepali homes where we drank. I feel like that's like the common thing to bring people together. We had rice whiskey and rice wine, and we'd tell stories. We'd make jokes. We'd literally be sitting in these tiny houses of one room around sort of a burning oven. So we got to know each other pretty well, and he spoke pretty good English because this was his job, this is what he did. And one day, we were walking, trekking again. I think we're on the descent now, and he said something to me that I'll never forget. He said, "You're really lucky to be taking this trip." And I was like, "What do you mean lucky?" I defended myself. I said, I didn't have a silver spoon. I worked hard. I saved up, and I can do whatever I want with the money that I saved. I deserve this. I chose to do this trip. He said, "No, you were lucky to be in a position to save money," which sort of pissed me off also. I said, "No, what do you mean?" I said, yes, I had certain opportunities, but my parents, and it's not just my story, it's again the story of many people that have traveled long and far to improve their lives, didn't come from a whole lot. They worked hard, they saved money to give me and my siblings a better life. We're not lucky. I told him, I understand where you're coming from, but that doesn't mean that I'm lucky in some way. And he said, "No, you don't understand. You're lucky to have been born in the US. And that crushed me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. He wasn't saying that I wasn't a hard worker. He wasn't saying that my parents didn't struggle at some point in their life. He was simply saying that I was lucky. And he was right. We were literally both the same age, 27 years old at the time. I was traveling for fun, pretty unlucky, right? And Prakash worked 7 days a week in the Himalayan mountains, away from his wife and 2 little children who lived in Kathmandu. He literally never saw them throughout the year so that he could save enough money to send back home to them. And I didn't know this at the time, of course, but by the way, in the major earthquake that happened a couple of years back, his house was completely destroyed. I realized at that moment, the most important thing that happens to us in our lives is literally the single thing we have no control over: where we're born and who we're born to. If you're born in a country like the US, a developing country, a developed country, you literally have infinitely more opportunity than if you're born in, say, a slum of Kenya or Bangladesh, etc. I was super lucky, and I am super lucky. We're super lucky. So if you look around the room today, I hope you realize that almost every single one of us is luckier than most. We're educated. We likely have a family. We have friends. We have a support structure. We have more than $10 in our pocket on any given day, which is more than 70% of the Earth's population has today. We have nothing to lose. And ironically, if you actually have nothing to lose, if you actually have nothing, you also have nothing to lose. And so when you have nothing to lose, you have no risk to take. And when you realize there are no risks in life, it frees you to do anything. And when you can do anything, you can literally change the world. Thank you.